Good afternoon, welcome to KubeCon. It's the end of day one here in Detroit, and I'm going to join a few of my colleagues from NetApp to talk about what's been happening today. I'm joined by Yves.
Yep.
So, how have you been finding it today? What's your takeaway from the keynote? Let's start with that.
So the keynote, the first part was about the community, obviously, right? The number of maintainers, the number of people who are producing code, actually, and it's huge, simply huge. The Kubernetes has become quite an enormous beast. So, and I'm curious to see where it's going to go in the future, because people are producing code, people are maintaining projects, and at the end of the day, it takes time to follow up what's going on, actually.
Yeah, so I found the first part of the keynote really interesting. They were talking about the number of maintainers, contributors, and then the number of users and developers, and the revenue of the companies that use Kubernetes. And one of the things that I think that may be difficult in the future is maintaining that scale of volunteer workforce. I think there could be, that could be an uphill battle. A lot of companies, NetApp included, have committed to dedicating more resources to open source, but there's always that kind of competing interest of your day job versus contributing, and so they have a big call, they want more contributors, I get that, but I think maintaining that as the project grows could become difficult.
And also there is often many different projects or open source projects that cover the same topics.
Yeah.
So there is internal, well, not internal competition, but competition between products that cover the same things. And well, I'm not going to say that there can only be one, but at the end of the day, probably not far.
Yeah, I think what we might see is that as more and more enterprises adopt projects from the foundation, and more enterprises come into this space, I think we'll see the number of projects maybe consolidate a little.
Yeah,
I think over
maybe,
time.
Yeah,
maybe merging, maybe that might help. So
yeah.
What kind of sessions have you been to today? Anything in particular that you found really interesting?
Yes, there was one very particular interesting session I went to, was about how to, well, scale applications, not necessarily based on CPU cores and the load of pods, but a much deeper metric, the number of threads, for instance. And so the whole session was about demonstrating the why, and the result was that this customer was able to scale thousands or tens of thousands of pods, and without, with much blah, 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 blah.
I know what you mean. I've actually worked on some projects like this in the past. So earlier on we were talking about the Kubernetes event-driven autoscaler, which is one of the projects that Microsoft have started, but it's now a wider project. And you can use things like Kafka queues and SQS or RabbitMQ, different metrics from different databases. And I think the overall takeaway from those sorts of sessions for me is that measuring CPU usage or memory utilization is probably not the best indicator of how you want to scale a modern application.
Yeah, instead, because you see something that is running at 100%, that is necessarily bad, right?
Yeah, especially if you're using resource constraints as well within your containers, that might not be a bad thing. You're just trying to make the best use of the resources that you've got.
Yeah.
Whereas, so one of the projects I worked on was we measured the depth of Rabbit queues. So RabbitMQ, event-based system, and as each queue got to a certain scale or a point, so we had 50 messages in the backlog, then we would build more pods.
Yeah.
Because I want my containers to be running at 100%.
Yeah.
I want them to be optimized and used as best as possible. Yeah. But what I do is I don't want that queue depth to get too long.
Yeah.
Kind of similar to what we do in old school fiber channel SAN with queue depths and things like that. So I mean, yeah.
History repeats itself, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So,
yeah, and I also have had different discussions about storage. And what I find very surprising is that storage is a wide world of different solutions. And I hear too often that NFS is old school, it's not made for containers. iSCSI is old school, it's not optimized, so just go for object storage. And I get it for some use cases, but no, most of the applications we see are still running on current well-known protocols such as NFS, and it works. It simply works. It's easy.
Yeah. There was in some of the pre-events we went to, there was this discussion as well about object storage. Now, I think object storage does have a place, but some of the arguments I think are a little bit difficult for me to rationalize. So one of the arguments were that network attached storage and SAN, they introduce latency because they're further away from the processor. But then things like object storage, if you want high availability and you want durability of data, you've got to write doing erasure coding or something else. And if you need strict consistency, you've got to wait for that erasure coding to complete across multiple nodes for a 200 back. But then you've just added latency anyway. You just added latency somewhere else in the chain.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think this is a situation I think we could debate with. Everyone's going to have a competing viewpoint, and there's probably no wrong and right answer, but I think calling out NFS or the iSCSI and block storage, I think calling them out as legacy storage is probably the wrong thing to do.
Yeah. Everyone has a space in the game, and But I'm pretty sure that databases and object storage is not for tomorrow.
Yeah, I think high performance transactional workloads in object storage is going to really struggle. Yeah.
Agreed.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for your time here.
Pleasure.
We'll see who else we can get up next.